to be starting this digitisation round. Thank you to Anna for the introduction, and to Michael Rolfe, who's been a big partner in this project. And of course, I think today is his last day, so congratulations, Michael, all the best.
Thanks, Julia.
And thank you also very much to all of our partners in the State Cultural Institutions. So it's very pleasing today to have Sarah here, State Library, Australian Museum and the Powerhouse, all experts in digitisation, and very grateful that they're here to share what they've been doing. So for us, we're very pleased to have this project finally out the door. We know it's a difficult time of year, and we really appreciate that everybody is rallying around and putting their attention to it in this busy time just before Christmas. And of course, the applications are due at the end of January. The team is here to answer any questions, so, you know, over the Christmas period and January period, so please don't hesitate to ask any questions of the team. This session will be recorded so people can watch it at a later time as well. I'd also just like to acknowledge that for me today, I'm sitting on Gadigal land. I'm here at Martin Place, where Create New South Wales offices are, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal people who might be joining us today or watching this in the future. Of course, this project will take place on many Aboriginal lands around New South Wales, and that's a really interesting part of the project, what opportunities there might be to work with Aboriginal people and their collections. So without further ado, I'll hand back to Anna, who I think will MC us through the agenda. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Julia. So first I'd like to introduce Paul Flemons from the Australian Museum team, and he's going to give us a bit of an introduction onto on the DigiBowl program. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Anna. Can everybody hear me? Assuming they can. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about the DigiBowl program because I think it suits the regional museum situation quite well in terms of from a resources perspective. DigiBowl program has been running at the Australian Museum for about 11 years, and it's focused heavily around the use of volunteers to help us digitise our collections. So the program involves an on-site component, where we have volunteers come into a lab at the museum and using pretty basic digitisation equipment like a copy stand, a camera and a computer. We have volunteers take images of our collection objects and specimens, which we have a small, the specimens, objects and their labels, sorry, or if it's written material, pictures of the book pages, etc., or field note pages. We then put those up online, and I'll show you the website in a moment. We put it up on the DigiBowl online, where we have volunteers transcribe the information in the labels into fields on the website, the DigiBowl website, and that data can then be downloaded and imported back into the museum's database. So it's kind of a workflow that is enabled by a coordinator, so that both the the on-site volunteers in the lab are coordinated by a volunteer, by a paid staff member, and we will have up to 12 volunteers in the one room being coordinated by one person, and that works very well. And they'll be working on multiple collections in that room, and we might have 5 or 6 workstations in that room, and the coordinator will move around and just ensure that the volunteers have the information they're required. They have the skills required, etc. And we have a recruitment process and documentation around managing those volunteers and the processes which they carry out as part of that digitisation process. We also have an online coordinator as well. So the role of the coordinator is pretty much a 5-day week, where we have 3 days. We started out with 3 days a week in the lab, and the online coordinator being 2 days a week, so that was a 5-day-a-week position. But you could scale it to any scale. You could have the coordinator 1 day a week, so it's very scalable process and workflow for digitising our collection. Now I'm just going to put up, I'm going to share screen, the Digivol Online website. I'm just looking to try and find where. Oops. There we go. So, sorry, I'm just trying to work out how to share. It's not giving me an option for sharing my browser for some reason.
If you'd like to, I can have a go, Paul, of sharing the Digivol website.
Yeah, or can you give me control of sharing? Not. If not, then just put up the Digivol website.
Maybe I can share it and then give you control. Let me give it a try.
So with the Digivol Online website, it's a totally free website that any institution around the world can use, and we have many institutions, we've probably got about 80 or 90 different institutions around the world that either have used Digivol or use it at the moment. And when we onboard a new institution for Digivol Online, we show them how to use the website, and we give them access to the tools they need in Digivol website, and then they manage and control the projects themselves. So they're called virtual expeditions. And basically, once we've shown you as an institution how to manage your projects, then you have control over a website which is yours to run for your institution. We create a page called the institution page, which you can put your logo up on. And if I get the screen up, I could show you all these things, but trust me. So you can have an institution page which you can brand and then market or promote through social media and other media if you wish, and you can run all your expedition, your digitisation program through that website. There are currently more than 8,000 volunteers that have used the Digivol website, and at any one time there might be 40 or 50 online working on digitising collections from around the world, and on a weekly basis there might be 1,000 different volunteers that are actually using the site. So it's a very productive website. We find at the moment, I know Wollongong and Parramatta councils have both got projects up there which are digitising materials from their collections, and they've both been using the site for a while now, so they've got experience in using the site. So if people are looking for some reference or getting an understanding of what it's like to work with Digivol, perhaps contact Wollongong or Parramatta Council about that. But there are many institutions from around the world, and there's projects that involve digitising insects, transcribing the labels from insects, transcribing historical notebooks, transcribing prison registers. So there's one from Millbank Prison in London up at the moment, which is about digitising the Millbank prison registers. There's also one from Tasmania that's about digitising prison registers. Hello, there we have it, Digivol website. Now,
there we go. Let me know if you want me to
scroll down the page so people can get it just slowly. So if you stop there, you can see that there's 3 different types of things that can be transcribed or digitised through the website: are collection labels, historical documents, and camera trap images. Now, I think probably the first 2 are the most likely to be used by this user group, I guess. If you scroll down further, and we'll just go through a number of the projects that are up at the moment. So that's a project from the New York Botanical Gardens, which is around herbaria. Scroll down further, that's actually the expedition of the day. We have camera traps there, we have another herbarium. Just keep scrolling down. Just scroll back up a little bit. You can see on the right-hand side there, we've got the number, just a little bit further up. You can see the numbers of volunteers, over 8,754 volunteers. You've got an honour board there. So it's a bit of a gamification which recognises and rewards volunteers for their contributions. You can see Parramatta School of Arts minute book there from the city of Parramatta. That's an example of the sort of, if you click on that project. It'll take you to a page which describes the project. And if you scroll down a little bit further, keep scrolling down, you can see the amount of the project that's been transcribed already, and then you can see what we call the expedition volunteers. So it's a bit of acknowledgement of the volunteers at what level of engagement they've got. The expedition leader is the one that's contributed the most transcriptions, and then technical officers the least. Scroll back up again, please. If you click on Get Started there, Get Started, go into there. Yeah, you have to register as me. You can't get to, sorry about this, you're going to need to register, which I don't want to give the details of my account over the internet. So just go back again. That would take you to a page which shows you the minute books and the data entry fields for the minute books. If you click on the view tutorial, that will take you through the tutorial. Click on that link, which will show you what's required to, so that's information around the project. So this is for training your volunteers. This is the information they need. If you scroll down through that, it'll generally give, it usually has a photo of what's page numbers. Yeah, it's telling you what you need to do as a volunteer. There's an example of the text involved. So every project that gets put up on Digivol Online has to have, so there's an example of the page that will be put up, has to have a tutorial, and that's the way in which volunteers learn to do the particular projects. As I said, our Digivol Online coordinator will take you through the process of setting up your own projects and then support you in doing that. If you go back to the front page of Digivol, and keep scrolling down, there's projects from natural history museums around the world, there's camera trap images. So it's a very broad range of institutions are getting their collections digitised through Digivol, and there's a lot of variety and flexibility in the types of projects that you can get digitised. If you scroll back up to the top of the page again, how am I going time-wise? Getting close. So at the top there, you can see that there's a forum. So in addition to, so if you click on the forum, in addition to, you have to log in, so sorry. In addition to the tutorials and access to the coordinator, there's also, there's a forum where volunteers can get assistance from other volunteers. They can put up any questions they have about the site overall, but also about individual tasks. So if they're having trouble understanding a particular task, they can put up a note in the forum which will be answered usually pretty quickly by another volunteer that's experienced in doing this stuff. But that is then backed up by the institutional contact for that particular project would then be able to look at the response from the look at the question initially, and they might want to answer it initially, or they might look at the response that might have been put in there by another volunteer to check that it's okay. So it just means that as a coordinator of projects, you don't need to be on the ball 24/7 because there's actually other experienced volunteers that are actually very capable. And in terms of quality of transcriptions, and I'll finish up soon, for each transcription there's a transcriber and a validator. So each of those pages is transcribed by one person who's a transcriber, and then each institution can choose people to be validators for each project. That way you're getting quality assured for each one of your collections you're getting digitised. I'll probably finish up there because I think time-wise I'm probably over time. Apologies for that.
That's brilliant, Paul. Thank you so much. It's really fascinating. There are no hands up, but would anyone like to ask a question at this point of Paul? No. Paul, would it be all right to maybe share your contact details if people do have questions afterwards, or if we get questions from anyone listening into the recording?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Thanks so much. There's some really amazing looking projects on there. Okay, thanks so much, Paul. So next, the Powerhouse Digitisation team, I think we're going to hear from next.
Yeah, hi. My name's Helen Johnson. I'm the project manager for the Collection, Relocation and Digitisation project, and I've got Arul.
Hi everyone, Arul. I head the digital engagement team here, and we work closely together on the collection.
So we're just going to share our PowerPoint pack that we have and talk to that.
So, yeah. Let's see, there we go.
Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Helen.
Great. Okay. So I'll just give a bit of an overview. Powerhouse program that we'll be talking in specific detail about today is a once in a generation opportunity to renew one of Australia's most significant cultural institutions. It consists of 4 key projects. So we have Powerhouse Parramatta, Powerhouse Ultimo renewal, Powerhouse Castle Hill, which is where we're building a new collection store and where we're relocating the collection from Ultimo to, and the Collection Relocation and Digitisation project, which I'll be talking about in more detail today. This map shows the 4 sites that fall under the Powerhouse precinct, including the Sydney Observatory, Parramatta, Castle Hill, Ultimo, and it also shows the map of where the collection's moving from Ultimo out to Castle Hill, just to give you some context. Powerhouse Collection has over 500,000 objects, 20 diverse focus collecting areas. I know that a number of items from our collection will likely resonate with collections from regional galleries. So items from our social history and domestic technology will probably be quite similar to some of the items that you see in yours. In 2019, we were successful in securing funding towards the Collection Relocation and Digitisation project. So it's more commonly referred to as the CRDP because it's quite a long title. And it's been designed around a 7-step approach. So that includes assessment of an item, digitisation, packing, relocation, unpacking, and then an inventory as well. So overall objective of the CRDP is about improvement. We're not just moving the collection or relocating it, but instead we're taking the rare opportunity to make overall improvements to the collection's documentation and image capture, its long-term storage and housing needs, and its overall accessibility. So what happens is that we have distinct teams who work, over 120 staff who work on the project. They're making sure that each item in the collection has a barcode and its location is correctly entered into our database. We then determine that each item record is accurate and contains a prerequisite amount of data. And the team also looks at whether an object needs any conservation support and treatment to enable it to travel safely. The items are also image captured and to a prescribed technical standard, and then housed or packed in a way that enables them to safely move. And then obviously we've got a dedicated logistics team who transport the items out to its ultimate destination in Castle Hill. So I just thought I'd focus on a few of the 7 phases. So we have documentation. So this is where the team look at each object record and determine if
you had to show your license. You couldn't go out of the 5K, so you got.
Hold on just a moment. I think I can mute.
You know, so they, and then the.
Determine if any work's needed to update it to ensure that each object has the same prescribed level of data. So they consult the museum's early stock books, comprehensive archives, along with online and library resources. The documentation team research and record details of the object's manufacture and provenance. At the start of the project, the team worked with a number of departments across the museum, including our curatorial team, to agree upon what we call a minimum data set. So that means each object has the same base level of information. So short title, object statement, production details, and a barcode. Conservation and housing. These are 2 distinct teams, but they work in tandem to determine how an object should be packed to provide ideal storage requirements for an object and what treatment is required to make those objects safe for relocation. Conservation team in particular focus on standard treatments. These are undertaken on objects which are determined to be in a fragile condition and require custom support to be relocated, which show evidence of damage or other hazards requiring treatment, or an extensive detailed clean is required prior to them being digitised. And digitisation. So digitisation of the museum's 338,000 items at Ultimo will result in new levels of community access. The digitisation team have developed a style guide and set of technical specifications which determine how the team image capture and photograph each object and how they'll be displayed on our website. These images are intended to provide enough information about an object to allow museum staff and researchers to understand the form, texture, material, and in most cases the manufacturing process without having to retrieve the physical object, which makes the collection more accessible to all users, regardless of geographic location, and helping to preserve the collection by reducing unnecessary object handling. So where are we at? At present, we've assessed almost 209,000 objects. We've digitised almost 30,000 objects. 3,000 of our at-sea collection have been assessed. Almost half of our items that have been identified that need conservation treatment have been conserved. 19,000 items are packed ready for transit, and 16,000 items have been moved and then unpacked at the other end at Castle Hill. We're immensely proud of the work that the entire team is undertaking to relocate the important collection, and we look forward to providing updates on our progress in the future. I'll now pass you over to Arul.
Thanks, Helen. So I just wanted to share a little bit about the work that's happening to increase access on the website and sort of developments that we've been doing alongside the digitization team. So I'll just share with a little bit of data about our online collection. The collection was first published and made public in 2007, so it's been around for quite a while. And a whole series of enhancements have happened over the years. But over the last 12 months, interestingly, digital engagement has gone up. I think that's happened worldwide, both with COVID and an increased use of the internet for research, for learning. But we've seen some really dramatic increase in engagement, which is great because while we've been shut down, we may not have had exhibitions or objects on this public display, that collection data is actively being used by people, and it's being used all over the world. So this slide was really interesting to us, the increase that we've seen in overseas use of our online collection. Almost 49% of our users over the last 6 months have been from outside Australia. And overall, sessions and page views are both up quite dramatically. So that's good news. It has been, it's an on-demand resource, and it's seeing quite a lot of use over this period. And we're adding a lot of content to it via digitization at the same time. So about a few months ago, we looked at a series of updates to better present the objects and data that were coming through via digitization. And we looked at two kind of problem statements, as the UX folks would term these. How might we enable visitors not only to find objects, but also to find other related interesting things? And how could we improve search and browse? Search and browse are the two modes most commonly used, or the two motivations. Search is great if you know what you're looking for and you know what's on the other side of that search box. But browse is also great to expand the sort of pathways that people might take. And if you don't know what you're looking for, here are things that could be of interest. So this is our new interface. We won't show you the old one, but basically we've made it a lot simpler and made search really quite prominent. Below that search bar, this is a small image, so you may not be able to read it, but it's looking for glass, and below it are those three boxes that have other categories such as vases, bowls, liquor glasses. If you click on any of those, it brings up all of those collection sets. So we're just trying to expand the adjacent areas of interest and allow easy access to those objects. If you want filters for a more nuanced search, using categories of places or people and organizations, time periods, that's also available. And we've gone from sort of cropped small images to nice, large uncropped images that really do justice to the beautiful photography that's coming through. Another of the enhancements was to draw out these hierarchies and relationships between objects, specifically sets of objects. I know for library, you guys have been doing this for a long time, but for us, this was a new feature on the online website. So in this case, we've got a set of objects that belong to Max Dupain, his camera, a portable darkroom, and so on. And all of those, if you look at that set, you can now look at each part and look at the hierarchies in both ways. And this is really interesting and useful when you look at sets like archives and so on, or a photo album. This is something else that we're working on, which is a prototype to draw out these relationships. So I'm going to kind of hope that this link works. Let me know if you can see a link in a browser. Do you guys see a browser window opening up?
No, unfortunately not.
All right, I might just try something here.
Yep, we can see the window.
Great. So when we have objects such as the camera, what we're looking at is having a little link that allows you to explore related objects. And if you were to click on that, you see a number of related objects and the relationship between them. So in this case, there are cameras, but not just all the cameras in the collection, specifically things that are around that era. There are other things made by Linhof, which is the manufacturer of the photographic equipment. And that's the kind of device that we're looking to introduce, kind of increase that view of related and interesting objects. Sorry, I'm going to have to jump back.
Errol, can I jump in with a quick question on that map, which is that is there audio also available as a data set with that object sort of mapping?
Not at the moment, but that other forms of media are very much on our roadmap. And as we get to that with digitization, we'll be looking at adding those in.
Thanks.
Are we back to presentation, hopefully? Can you guys see that? Okay, yeah. Also thinking about what else we can do with this. So the result of having the collection online for such a long time and been working on it is that we have a really good, strong, robust online collection API. It's the 4th generation of that API now, and it allows us to plug it into different kinds of output. For example, here is a concept around a similar kind of visualization that could be in a large interactive space. Again, a kind of visual browser that's showing you relationships between objects. Perhaps that could be in a lobby as you walk into the museum. And that's all possible given that we've got that data, we've got the images, and we've got the API. We've also been doing, outside of the digitization project, we've been doing some research around 3D. We have a couple of linkage grants, one with the NSW that's looking at 3D visualization and what might be possible in terms of narratives and storytelling in a distributed sense. So the image on the left is sort of scanning one of the objects from our collection using a laser scanner. On the right is a concept around dropping objects into a virtual space that could be in a classroom, for example. We did a prototype with CSIRO around a large plane in our collection, the Catalina, which went on a trip to South America. We have amazing archival photography and material from that trip. And this was a chance to have a virtual kind of experience where the plane flew into the room. You could explore the photography, you could walk around the plane and learn a little bit about that amazing trip. And the last one I wanted to, and this is for a regional audience, I think quite interesting, is some early experiments in photogrammetry that we've been doing. Photogrammetry is a imaging technique that uses just regular DSLR cameras. So you don't need that fancy scanner. It's just a regular Canon camera, and you can actually even do it with a smartphone. But you take a series of pictures from different angles, and then you're able to stitch that together into a 3D model. So I'm going to sort of jump off again and hope to show you what that looks like very quickly. So if you can see that screen now, that's the finished model. That came out of a a 2-hour kind of session. And as you can see, you can go quite close and look at sort of detail on it or turn it around. And this is on a platform called Sketchfab. But it was really good learning for us that you can do this without a lot of fancy equipment, and you can do it in a small space as well. So I think that's it from us. So I might hand it over back to you. Thanks, Anna.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Errol and Helen. Your setup is incredible. When you see that sort of vision of the studio setup, it's quite remarkable. Does anyone have any questions for Errol and Helen at this point? No. I have one quick question, which was around the data that you're capturing on who's actually viewing the platform and the various collection items, and whether that's broken into whether they're sort of researchers or students, or whether you're able to capture that type of data.
Yeah, so we don't get that level of nuance via the Google Analytics, but we have run surveys on the website before previous redesigns. So it's a little pop-up survey, and if people opt into that, then we send them a little gift voucher and thank them for their time. But we have some pretty detailed information from that. And yes, it's a lot of it is research, teachers, students, and a lot of design disciplines, architecture, product design, and so on, as you would imagine. Yeah. But there's a lot of hobbyists and a lot of enthusiasts as well come through.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, thank you both very much. That's wonderful. So now joining us is Scott Wagen from the State Library. Thanks very much, Scott.
Yeah, hi everyone. My presentation, I've got two main things I want to sort of, I guess, show people. One is a very little bit about our program, which it's a very large scale program and may well be quite different to what the experience of in a more regional and local sense would be. But I do want to cover some of that background of that, because we were 8 years into a 10-year program, and I have to be honest that there's quite a high level of achievement in that, which I'd like to share. But also through that time, I think we've had time to distill some higher principles and kind of like a bigger picture approaches, and what are the challenges in digitisation. And I think these apply to smaller projects as well as they had to ours. So I'll probably spend a bit more time on that. So if I can just share my screen, hopefully this will happen easily. Okay, how's that? Okay,
yep, great, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so just going back in time a little bit to 2011, we were like many of the grand collecting institutions of the kind of the 18th and 19th century, and had big physical collections that were kind of like the method of access to them and the outreach from them was getting quite out of date. We knew we had to do something in the spaces of both digital preservation of the objects and better access to those objects via digitisation. We were successful with two business cases. One was for a total renewal of our infrastructure and our technology platform, and the other was for a longer 10-year program of actually digitising the collection. So they were both standalone, but they were interrelated, and thankfully we did get them together. So just as a comparison, prior to the program being funded in 2011, we had a small unit here doing about 30,000 images, be they a page, a negative, a photograph, a painting, whatever, a year. which I mean is barely keeping up with acquisition to a collection. So it was obviously not suitable. The DEP, as it was called, the Digital Excellence Program, was scoped to be a 10-year project to create 12 million digital master files. But even that, you can see, is a bit of like in the iceberg analogy, is really that little bit that's poking above the water. There's a massive amount of our collection which is not going to be digitised, and so selection and prioritisation becomes very important when you can only do a small part of your collection. This was a view, this is a view a little while ago of, and I don't expect people to be able to read this, but the illustrative of how we mapped out our collections over the years. So on the left-hand side, we have like physical collection types, manuscripts, photographs, negatives, maps, etc. And across the top are the years, and that's how we sort of mapped out the collections that we wanted to do in a kind of a very high-level scheduling, which was very much a forecast and an estimate and didn't really run true to how we thought it would 8 years ago. Obviously, you know, the practicalities and realities of approaching these collections and digitising them are a little bit different from what you're in a meeting room planning that might happen. So the first 8 years, at the end of the last financial year, we were actually at 13.7 million master files. Now, we'd only intended and we're hoping to get to 12. So we're doing very well in that respect, and we do have 18 months left of the program. Now, if we have a look at the types of things we digitised in that period, and they do reflect very much ourselves as a library, as opposed to, say, a gallery or a museum, in the types of collections that are part of our collection and that are important for users and readers to have access to. And a lot of these are paper-based collections. So newspapers are very regional and metropolitan newspapers, very popular. So we concentrated on those. So the print part of our collections, newspapers, books, the government gazettes and serials, etc., a big focus in our first 6 or 8 years, getting a massive amount of that, millions and millions of pages done and available. They've been OCR'd, so they then become text searchable, as well as actually visually searchable. And a lot of that is out through the Trove interface, through the National Library. Just as a quick summary before we move on to kind of, I guess, the next section, 5 million pages of newspapers, 500,000 pages of journals, serials and magazines, and you can kind of read down through that without me having to read it for you. But these are very, very large amounts of digitisation and from a very large collection. So it's probably quite different to the type of material and the kind of, the resources and the funding that would be involved in smaller regional collections. But it's just for a point in time, it's worth seeing where we've got to. Now, we probably won't be increasing our digitisation cumulative totals at the same rate as we did before, because in these last 2 years, we're really focusing on that kind of original and rarer and fragile materials, whereas prior we were working on our print materials, which are cheaper to digitise more quickly, and are bigger collections. So now we have got a lot of original material manuscripts. We've got some realia and 3D objects. We've got glass plate negative collections. We've got oil paintings and the like. So these things take longer to digitise, and you don't get the throughput that you do from a paper-based item. Now, what we did in the beginning of the program, and still do now, and I think is very applicable to the regional models, is that you can do some in-house, but there actually is now a growing amount of vendors out there who have capability to work with us. So not only did we sort of like obviously equip ourselves and skill up our staff and bring on some extra people, but we spent a lot of time building heritage panels for digitisation suppliers, and they're available through our website. And these are essentially what they are recommended panels that we've tried these people. We've given them sample sets, we've given them specifications, we've checked their, they've given us proof of concept samples, and we've kind of been confident enough to publish them as saying these people can do this sort of work. And that's available across the cultural sector to anyone who wants to use those panels. And not only are the panel vendors there, but there's also sort of background materials and templates for statements of requirements that people can use when they go into a vendor to specify what they want the digitising vendor to do. The other thing when we're talking more about the bigger picture, possibly you won't be able to read this too clearly, but building digital collections either by digital acquisition or by digitisation is a really multifaceted thing. Okay, and if you look around the bubbles around that centre of building the collection, digitisation is only one of them. So there's some really important things that go from selection and preparation, creation of metadata, managing your digital asset, making your digital asset accessible, preserving your digital asset, and also the project management and the workflow that you need to kind of bring into your organisation to make your digitisation project successful. And then if you're talking about once you've got all that underway, you want to actually enhance the value. You want to make something a little bit more special in terms of the user interfaces or how people interact with. And the powerhouses like 3D objects and those sort of things are great examples of the value add to actually just simply digitising something. And of course, then you have to consider rights management and copyright restrictions for various reasons, all of those sorts of things. And then there's digital preservation and the costs of ongoing storage of the digital content. So there's a lot of things in the environment and the ecosystem that centre around that little digitisation part. And this is probably another way of looking at it. You can see digitisation sitting in the centre of pre and post activities, and there's kind of more in those than there actually is in the actual digitisation component. And of course, workflow management is the kind of like, I guess, the seal of success on getting from A to B in these sorts of projects. There was a question, I think, that Anna asked if there was any indication of what types of resources and staffing might be related to digitisation projects. So this is a bit of a summary of ours. Once again, it is a very big program, but I think what it does, it actually illustrates which types of people or types of activities you need to do if single people are doing multi-activities. And of course, the bigger the program, the more leadership and coordination you need. Now, in a small program, you probably won't. But we have our collection care because things have to be prepared and stabilised. We have the metadata teams. We have a digital preservation kind of at the end of the process. We have quality assurance because with mass projects, when a vendor's supplying things to you, or even when you're doing them yourselves, you need to have an assurance step that the quality is what you expect. Obviously, we have a digitisation team, and we're including our AV, our film, video, and oral history digitisation. And the top ones on the second row, sorry, the DX Lab and the developers and user experience. This is something I'll talk a little bit about. But this is, once again, referring back to the powerhouses, development of their interfaces and new ways of presenting this material. So the DX Lab and our developers and our what we call our collection experience program are part of delivering those assets in a really good way, a good, modern, a comprehensive and personalisable way to the reader or to the user. So the collection experience program kind of developed because we realised that digital preservation and access to digital content are not the same things, and you do need separate systems to do them. So we've decoupled our digital preservation from our access and delivery systems. So we have what we'd call a dark archive of digital preservation where masters go and they stay there and they're looked after very carefully, and we keep them in 3 different locations. But the other side of the collection experience is where people get to interact with that digital content. So we're custom building the interfaces, all sorts of value adding with extra either automated or user driven tags and extra metadata. Browsing, I think, as Arul mentioned too, is a different experience to simply searching a catalogue. And libraries have had a lot of traditional catalogues, and that's been a strength of them for a long time. But now we're actually having all of our new systems built through this collection experience, which is the browsing experience, which is quite different. And there's personalisation and all of that coming into it, and users being able to track themselves and their requests through that. The DX Lab is almost an extension of that. The DX Lab is taking all this digital content and really looking at it and presenting it and visually interpreting it and delivering it in really innovative and quite creative and experimental ways. So there's a lot of stuff on our website, and all the links to that, some really kind of amazing projects, which are some of those, and some of these are international award-winning projects that they've delivered from our content. And that's kind of on top of just making it accessible. Accessibility is kind of like your ground zero. Beyond that are these sort of enhanced ways that people could interact with things. So just quickly, our program is very much like about our collection, and it doesn't have a really large regional outreach to that. We do have a public library network, and as the experts in digitisation, we provide guidelines and we do presentations, and we're a source of information for them. Also, the heritage panels have a lot of information that people can actually access as well. Last year we did a small archivist in a backpack grant application process, where people from regional libraries applied to us, and we made these sort of backpacks that had a scanner and all sorts of things in it that they could then take and work on their local studies collections. And also the final thing, the creation of the vendor panels is a big thing, because we've had a lot of local councils and libraries who have actually approached people that we put up on those heritage digitisation panels for their own little collections. But there are challenges to all of this, and just listing them through here, and people would probably see this would resonate with people, is the preparation of the collections, because a physical collection on a shelf isn't automatically ready to just digitise and have a great throughput. And you need, especially with big collections and big programs, you need a lot of efficiencies in your workflow and kind of automations and programs that can track you and help you with workflow. Digital preservation is another challenge. Digital storage, these are expensive things and have to be managed very well. Accessibility and the user experience of digitized content, we have learnt that just simply attaching an image to the catalogue record, that isn't really, it's selling it short. We're also now digitising time-based media, which is very more difficult. We're talking about oral history, video and film, but if you go to the art gallery and another place, you actually have kind of like time-based art, you have installations and things like that, very difficult things to digitise and capture properly. And also alongside all of this digitisation, there's born digital, and in our collecting program and our understanding of how to collect and manage and make accessible, born digital is growing through this program as well. So that's pretty well it, covering like some of the bigger picture topics that we've kind of like had to confront and still are solving as best we can. So we can leave there if any questions, but happy to take them.
Thanks so much, Scott. That's really thorough presentation and really interesting to see all the work that you're doing. Are there any questions from those online at the moment? It's quite a quiet bunch today. Thank you so much. That's incredibly valuable. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, and last but not least, thank you so much for joining us. Martin Killian is here from State Archives and Records Authority, SARA, to give us a presentation on their digitisation program as well. Martin, are you there? Hello, Martin. I know he has been there. Hello, Martin. Can you hear us? Sorry, everyone. I wonder if we wait a moment. He is on the line. No, Martin? It would be a shame to miss out on his presentation. He's been so patiently waiting to go.
He might be trying to reconnect. Maybe we should just...
There he is. Yes.
He must have just hit the wrong button, I think.
Hi, Martin.
Hello there.
Missed you for a moment there.
Yes, indeed. Having waited patiently for my session, when it came to that moment, yes, never mind. So I will just restart my presentation, if I might, and then share it. So my apologies for that. I don't quite know what happened there.
No, not at all. It's great. Thank you so much.
So I'm hoping that you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Great. All right. So I'm very pleased to be here speaking to you from Darragland in the Western Sydney Records Centre at Kingswood. And really, I wanted to convey two messages today about the work that State Archives and Records does. That is our role as a state collecting cultural institution and the work that we do in relation to the State Archives collection, and then our role as a commercial service provider for digitisation. And so I'll touch on both of those elements in there. So first of all, in respect of the State Archives collection, it is an asset, cultural asset, that's valued at over $1 billion. It is large. It spans 86 linear kilometres and is estimated to comprise around 14 million items, and essentially comprises the archives of the state government, but also local government, universities, public hospitals and state-owned corporations. And that material is very much based around colonialism and therefore dates just slightly before 1788 and European settlement, but goes right up until the present. And that image that you can see on the screen there is just one of our fairly vast back-of-house storage areas. The majority format for the State Archives collection is, of course, paper, so through documents and files, but there are also another vast range of formats, including bound volumes, maps and plans, and significant quantities of both audio-visual formats and photographic formats. So films and cassettes, videos, but also photographs, glass plate negatives, acetate negatives, and so on. And of course, increasingly born digital material as well. So material that isn't paper-based, that is then digitised, but material that is actually created in digital format from its inception. And that's an increasing part of the State Archives collection. In terms of collection digitisation, the main purposes that we undertake digitisation for are access and preservation. So certainly the State Archives collection is probably known to and very well loved by a small, relatively small audience compared to other cultural institutions. So the work that we can do through digitisation to enhance access to the collection and enhance awareness of the collection by reaching an extended audience is certainly one of our objectives, and certainly to meet public expectations of a public collection being easily available. And our other main stand, I guess, in terms of collection digitisation is preservation. So ensuring preservation of the original through access of a digital surrogate. So certainly for members of the public who are using the State Archives collection, being able to use that digital surrogate rather than continually needing to use and thumb through the original. Preventing the loss of information, so in terms of particularly the manuscript material, but also other formats such as audio tapes, videos and so on, ensuring that no information is lost. And also ensuring that in the event of format obsolescence, similar to that prevention of loss of information, that through digitisation, we're not actually losing any material from the State Archives collection. Our approach to digitisation is very much guided by a digitisation policy that we've developed in the last few years, which really sets out our objectives and our principles around digitisation. And then an annual digitisation plan that it is guided by a cross-organisational working party that comprises both people who bring to the table an access perspective and an engagement perspective, and others that bring a collection perspective and collection care perspective. All of the formats that we digitised are digitised to recognised archival standards, so standards that are put out, for example, by the National Archives of Australia. And when it comes to the actual digitisation, we have an extensive internal digitisation laboratory here at the Western Sydney Record Centre. So we do use that extensively, primarily for paper-based parts of the collection. And then for more specialised formats, we typically have that done externally through digitisation vendors, so materials such as audio-visual material, for example, that requires that specialised equipment in order to digitise, we outsource that. So in terms of our commercial digitisation activity, and this might be of particular interest to participants in this particular meeting, we do have a fully functioning digitisation lab at the Western Sydney Record Centre, as I mentioned, and that operation undertakes both collection digitisation, but also undertakes digitisation on a commercial basis for other organisations, and typically is well staffed and well resourced to meet those expectations of commercial clients. So extensively set out with high-speed and flatbed document scanners and a fleet of other specialist equipment. We employ around 70 staff who are trained in digitisation processes and equipment, and we offer a 24/7 on-demand scanning service for particularly our government agency clients and in particular our hospital clients to be able to scan patient files stored here and being able to transmit those to a hospital for urgent cases. So I heard Scott mention the vendor digitisation panels that the State Library set up, and our commercial digitisation service is certainly one of those vendors who are on that panel, qualified to be on that panel. And so therefore we've undertaken quite a lot of work for government agencies, for cultural institutions, some of which are present here today, and other commercial clients, as well as our own internal work that has been done. So that commercial operations team regularly delivers around 5 million images to clients each year, and that on-demand team meets around 700 requests for files each week. So I'm hoping that that has given you a brief outline of our activities. Certainly in relation to collection digitisation, my colleague Anna Gray is our primary officer there for inquiries or any assistance anyone needs. And for any of the organisations that are interested in us providing commercial digitisation services, the details of my colleague Christy Tabiri there are also on your screen. And after that somewhat dramatic start, I'll hand back to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Martin. I'm so pleased that that you stayed with us. That's fantastic. And thank you so much to all of the presenters today. I think, you know, it's really clear how much expertise we have with our state institutions in the digitisation area. And so, yeah, we're incredibly grateful to you for sharing today. It's been really wonderful. Are there any last questions or anything from the floor, or would anyone like to say anything else before we finish up? No? Okay, thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time today. I know it's such a busy period. So thank you, and Merry Christmas to you all, I suppose.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic, very interesting.
I just noticed a question in the chat from David Levick asking, is there provision on Digivol for oral histories to be uploaded? No, but we have had interest in the past before, and there's scope for developing that capacity, but it would need a level of funding. But if there's interest in that, then that's a discussion that could be had. We don't have specific funding for it yet, though.
Great, thank you. I mean, I just think it's extremely interesting to see, you know, the breadth of collections and the different ways of approaching digitisation. So it's very interesting. I'm really happy that we brought this group together to share their experiences. So hopefully we'll be able to keep that going. It's great to hear from everybody. So thank you very much, everyone, and have best wishes for the season and 2021. It can only get better, right?
Let's hope so.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Everyone.